The chandeliers blazed like captured stars above the grand ballroom of Seattle's Whitmore Hotel. Velvet curtains framed the stage, crystal glasses chimed, and the hum of wealth and power vibrated through every corner. It was the kind of night where fortunes and reputations were polished with a smile, where people came less for charity and more for the theater of being seen. And yet, in the middle of this glittering sea of gowns and tuxedos, a girl sat alone. 16-year-old Sophia Kane. Her midnight blue dress shimmered under the lights, diamonds glinted on her ears, but her shoulders were tense, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her skirt. Around her conversation swirled laughter gossip deals whispered over champagne, but none of it reached her. For Sophia, the world had gone silent years ago. She had trained herself to read lips, to study faces like a second language, but tonight she was tired of pretending. Tired of nodding politely at people who didn't really see her. Tired of being paraded as the daughter of Rebecca Kane, CEO of Kane Global, one of the most powerful women in Seattle. Sophia wasn't invited to speak. She was here to stand still, smile on cue, and remind everyone that Rebecca Kane's life was picture perfect. Except it wasn't. From across the ballroom, Rebecca's figure radiated control. Tall, elegant, dark hair swept into a flawless chignon, her gown black as obsidian, her posture sharp as a blade. People orbited her the way planets circle the sun. Investors leaned in eagerly, journalists, scribbled rivals, tried to match her cool smile. She was a woman, carved from stone, unshakable. But she never once looked at the girl sitting alone. Sophia lowered her gaze. Invisible. Always invisible. At the far edge of the ballroom, a man in a simple black vest was pushing a cart stacked with glassware. He didn't belong to this world of diamonds and pedigrees. His shoulders were broad from years of labor, his movements careful but efficient, the kind of presence most people dismissed without a thought. Daniel Brooks. He had taken this extra shift because rent was due, and his daughter Emily needed braces. By day, he scrubbed floors at a downtown office tower. Tonight, he polished glasses and cleared plates while billionaires toasted themselves. And that's when he saw her. Sophia wasn't hard to spot once you looked past the spectacle. The way she sat stiffly in the corner, the way her eyes darted around the room but never rested, the way her lips pressed tight as though holding back a scream. Daniel knew that look. He had seen it on his own daughter's face, the ache of being left out, of being surrounded by people but completely alone. He was about to move on when a group of teenagers drifted toward Sophia's table. Sons and daughters of the elite dressed like miniatures of their parents, their laughter edged with cruelty. "Can you even hear us?" One boy mouthed exaggeratedly, hands flapping near his ears. Another girl mimicked sign language nonsense motions that made her friends snicker. Sophia froze. She'd dealt with it before, but the sting never dulled. Daniel's chest tightened. He set his card aside and walked over, his pulse steady. The teenagers barely noticed him until his shadow fell across the table. "That's enough," he said firmly. The boy smirked. "Relax, we're just joking." Daniel didn't raise his voice, but his eyes held the kind of warning that only a man who had fought for respect his entire life could carry. Jokes don't make someone smaller, they make you smaller. The teens shifted uneasily. One rolled his eyes, but they drifted away, muttering. Sophia blinked, startled by the interruption. Her gaze lifted to Daniel's, wary at first. Then he raised his hands and signed two simple words. "You're okay." Her lips parted. She hadn't expected that. Not here, not from him. The corners of her mouth curved upward, just slightly. For the first time all night, she smiled. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. A fragile connection, like striking a match in the dark. He gave her a small nod and stepped back, returning to his cart. Across the ballroom, Rebecca had seen everything. Her eyes narrowed. Who was this man? And why was her daughter smiling at him when she never smiled at her? The music swelled, cameras flashed, and the MC called the crowd's attention to the stage where Rebecca was about to give her keynote speech. She moved forward, flawless as always, but her gaze flickered once more to the corner where her daughter, The girl she could never reach had just been reached by a janitor. The irony cut sharper than any blade. Outside the ballroom windows, the city glittered beneath the night sky, but inside another kind of storm had begun. Rebecca Kane would not say it aloud, but something about that fleeting smile born not of wealth, not of prestige, but of being seen, would haunt her long after the applause ended. And for Daniel Brooks, who thought this was just another shift, nothing more than a paycheck, the moment would set into motion a story he never imagined, one that would bind his life to the billionaire and her daughter in ways none of them could yet understand. Because sometimes the most powerful echoes begin in silence. The limousine door closed with a muted thud, sealing off the noise of the gala. Inside, silence hung heavier than the velvet drapes. Rebecca Kane sat perfectly poised, her back straight. Her chin lifted, her designer gown still immaculate, as though untouched by the long evening. To anyone watching from outside, she looked like control itself. But across from her, Sophia sat curled against the window, staring out at the blur of city lights. Her hands rested limply in her lap. She didn't bother pretending to lip-read her mother anymore. She didn't bother pretending at all. Rebecca tried. It was an important night, Sophia. Her words were crisp, measured. She exaggerated the shape of them the way she always did when she thought her daughter might be watching. Sophia didn't look at her. Instead, her hands moved in sharp, clean gestures. You never try. The interpreter seated up front turned, slightly translating softly into words that Rebecca could hear. But Rebecca didn't need translation. She had seen enough ASL over the years to recognize those 3 words. They cut through her like glass. Rebecca's throat tightened. For a second, the iron facade cracked, and she almost reached for her daughter's hand. Almost. But the wall rose again, built from years of guilt, of distance, of never knowing what to say. Sophia didn't wait. She turned her face back to the city and let the silence answer for her. That night, as the limousine climbed into the hills where the Kane estate sat like a fortress, memories Rebecca had fought to bury pressed against her. The screech of tires on wet asphalt, the blinding flash of headlights from the opposite lane, the sound of shattering glass, her husband's final breath, and the silence that followed. When she woke in the hospital, her daughter had survived but deaf. The doctors said the damage was permanent. Rebecca remembered Sophia's small hands signing in frustration the way she had begged her mother to learn alongside her. But Rebecca had drowned instead in work and power, in anything that kept her from the truth she had been the one behind the wheel. Rebecca shut her eyes as the limousine turned into the long, winding drive. Outside, floodlights illuminated the sprawling house, but to her it looked more like a mausoleum. Across the city, in a modest apartment above a laundromat, Daniel Brooks unlocked his front door with a weary sigh. The hour was late, but a warm glow spilled from the living room. Daddy Emily's small voice rang out as she barreled toward him, her ponytail bouncing. 8 years old, all freckles and energy, she wrapped her arms around his waist before he could even set down his keys. Daniel chuckled, the exhaustion in his shoulders easing as he hugged her back. You should be in bed, kiddo. I waited. Her eyes, so much like her late mother's, sparkled. Did you bring me anything? Daniel pulled a wrapped dinner roll from his pocket, the only thing he could sneak away from the gala. Emily took it like it was treasure beaming. He watched her devour it at the tiny kitchen table, and for a moment the loneliness of his shift faded. This was why he worked, why he scrubbed floors and cleared glasses in rooms where men wore watches worth more than his yearly rent. Emily, his reason. As she finished her snack, she chattered about her day at school, her drawings taped to the refrigerator behind her. Daniel listened, every word soaking into him like sunlight. He thought of the girl at the gala, the Kane girl. Sophia, her eyes hollow until the moment he signed to her. It struck him how 2 children, both artists in their own way, could live such different lives. One surrounded by luxury, yet starved of connection. The other with little more than love and laughter, but rich in spirit. Daniel tucked Emily into bed, smoothing the blanket over her small frame. She drifted off, quickly clutching a stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. Daniel stood for a long moment, watching her breathe, and whispered, I'll keep fighting for you, kiddo. At the Kane estate, Sophia retreated to her room, closing the door softly.